Mike Matei's podcast failed. There's a reason. And it's not only because of his two-handed grip on the mic stand that's already mounted on the table, but that image you saw in the thumbnail is an emblem of this video you're watching now, which is my contribution to the field of Cinemassacre social sciences, a content genre home to folks like Red Cow Arcade, or the guy who did the Cinemassacre rap, Cinemassacre truth-adjacent folks, like me. So in part one of this video, we will examine why Mike Matei's podcast failed. In part two of this video, we will look specifically at how his podcast failed, how it all blew up in smoke at the end, how it made its grand exit stage left. And finally, in part 3 of this video, I will be delivering Mike Matei his sentencing, which will specify what Mike needs to do in order to atone for this situation. Alright, so let's jump into it, guys. If anyone is not familiar with Mike Matei's former podcast, it was the spin-off from Cinemassacre and all the Screenwave guys in that unfortunate era of James Rolfe's career. Mike Matei started doing a lot of live streaming, and this podcast that he did with Ryan was sort of a natural, organic extension of that. Mike Matei's podcast Talk About Games was co-hosted by Ryan, who is another longtime Cinemassacre associate. He's not just one of those Screenwave imports. He has been there since close to the very beginning. So let's now listen to Mike talk about the premise for the show and what he hopes to get out of it.
One thing I do want to say, and I kind of want to just make sure that I make clear is, I'm still streaming all the time, and I'm kind of doing this additionally to the streaming. This is what we're going to do this for an hour or two, and that's about all the time it's going to take me because all the research work is my streams. Basically, this isn't really taking much time away from my streams. In fact, I actually think it's going to help my streams because I'm going to get to talk to another person for a few hours about games, and then probably you'll tell me some things, and then I'll end up going back and playing something probably, that you end up telling me about.
Yeah. So there you have it. It's a natural extension of Mike Matei's streaming content, and that's going to come into play later when we look at how the podcast imploded. Okay, now I'm going to start grilling the podcast now, but I want to make it clear that this is all in good fun. Cinemassacre Truth is a place for dunking, but ultimately I think both of these guys are cool guys, and I'm glad that they've contributed so much to the video game discussion content space. Okay, but I'm now going to show you a case study, a moment of their radio broadcast that this is the kind of thing that was not exactly helping their chances that the podcast would blow up in popularity. So now you're going to hear the cold open of their final episode. And watch how abruptly, after the theme song ends, they swerve into a tangent, and even worse, you don't even know what the tangent is. You have no idea where they're going. You ready for this?
Yes, we talk about games and sometimes other stuff. Like Star Trek, it's a blast, our gaming podcast.
Hello and welcome to another Talk About Games. I'm Ryan.
And I'm Mike. My game today is Skyforce Anniversary. What's your game, Ryan?
My game is Pocky and Rocky Reshrined.
Pocky and Rocky.
This game was not what I thought it was going to be.
Before we get into our games, I want to tell you about something.
Okay,
so,
tell me.
As I drive over here, there's a house on the side of the road.
Okay.
And it's just somebody's house.
Yeah.
All right, I have no idea where this is going. It's just a house on the side of the road. And look, he's going to get to a point, but I'll give this pro tip for any aspiring content creators or anyone just looking to have better conversations at business networking events and singles mixers. If you're going to tell a story or an anecdote, the listener should always know where the story is going. You have to preface it with the point so that when you start providing these details, the audience knows how to make sense of it every sentence of the way. But right now, he's asking the listener to paint a picture of the house on the side of the road and where is this going?
Yeah.
And it's just somebody's house.
Yeah.
In a residential area.
Yeah.
And there's a sign, a professionally printed sign in their lawn, and it says dinner 4 to 9. You want to go? You want to go?
Wait, is that like public, or are they like advertising it for their family?
I think just they want somebody to show up and to go to dinner.
Yeah. You ever play Resident Evil Biohazard?
It's no wonder this is the last episode. Right out of the gate, they're going on these random tangents, and now Ryan just suddenly wants to talk about a Resident Evil. That seemed like more the pre-show banter that would have been actually cut from the final video, but whatever. So we're now going to jump back a few episodes to the Super Mario Land 2 episode. And in this clip here, the issue to be highlighted is a sort of over-explanation, diving too deep into the gritty details of this Mario game that it sometimes feels less like a podcast and more like you're listening to surveillance audio of an uncle telling his nephew how the different systems and the mechanics in the game work. A means to an end rather than inherent content itself.
And you can go to a hut. So there's ways to get lives.
Right.
So at the end of every level, there is the door to leave, and there's a bell. The bell is harder to get to. You want to ring the bell. You go to the mini game. The mini game looks like something out of Link's Awakening with the conveyor belts and stuff, like the claw game. You play the claw game. There's 3-ups in there. So you want to ring the bell and get the 3-ups.
Like the little moon.
Yeah, it's not a moon. It's a heart with a 3 on it.
Yeah.
But it would be the moon in Mario World.
Right.
Then there is a little hut that you can go to. And you go into the hut and there's these like slot machines. And the slot machines have coin values. And the prizes that are in the slot machines depend on how much you pay.
Yeah.
So if you pay 200 or more, they're almost all 1-ups.
I just hate it in the Mario 2 and Mario 3 have the slot machine shit.
Yeah.
It's like there's always slot machine stuff. I never liked that.
But it's one reel.
Like matching
The slot machine's one reel. So it's
okay.
not like you have to match 3 in a row. It's just you just get whatever.
You just get it.
So if you
Okay.
pay the cheapest amount, there's no 1-ups in it. It's like 10 coins. It's like stupid, or 20. Then 50 coins, there's like a 1-up. There's like a couple 1-ups. When you get to 200 coins, it's almost all 1-ups. And you get to the top amount of coins, it's all 3-ups. Right?
Well, I'm glad I got that explanation. It starts to feel like a factual book report and summarizing mechanics rather than an actual deep dive into opinions and putting the game in context. And look, I'm not saying the entire episode is this, but it's these kind of things that could force a person to click off the video midway. I'm now going to critique a moment in which the discussion is brought to a screeching halt. And whenever you're doing internet radio, you always want to think of every sentence that comes out of your mouth as either a go light or a stop sign. You want to make sure that you're not spamming the stop sign in service of like literal factual accuracy. Any potential roadblocks or detours should be acknowledged with the minimum necessary and then breeze on by to focus on the point of the conversation, progressing it forward, focus on the game.
So there's 6 lands and they're weird. I made a tweet about this game.
Okay.
And I said, this game is like Nintendo sanctioned fan fiction.
I missed that tweet. Usually I get most of your tweets. I'm sorry I missed that tweet. I try to stay off of Twitter sometimes.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Me too.
So that was basically what could have been an engaging tennis volley, metaphorically. Ryan sent him the ball over the net, and instead of hitting it back, Mike just slammed it onto the ground. Stop sign, with sentence after sentence talking specifically about that stop sign that, oh, I didn't see your tweet, didn't stop there. Say, I try to stay off of social media, right? The people listening to the broadcast are here for a discussion about the game. So over time, you develop a broadcasting IQ that allows you not to get tripped up by these factual detours. All Mike really needed to say in that moment was, I didn't see the tweet, but yeah, I can totally see what you mean about the wild, wacky, nonsensical fanfic nature of Super Mario Land 2. Now, failing to keep your eye on the ball is also something that happened in their special report about what exactly defines a Metroidvania, the genre of games. And what you're going to hear them say in this clip now is fretting about nomenclature and semantics so much that they sort of forget to actually talk about the game.
Right, so you're
It's
right.
just that it's in
okay,
3D.
so Metroid Prime, under our definition, is a Metroidvania.
I think so. I guess but on top of that, I will also say that I think it's kind of redundant when we're calling a Metroid game a Metroidvania, because it's like, oh, Metroid's like Metroid. It's like, no shit, Metroid's like Metroid.
Well,
it's Metroid.
Like, it's like, is Rogue a roguelike? That's the question you're asking.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Good point.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rogue, absolutely. It's not a roguelike because it's Rogue.
And that's why I'm saying it. How can Metroid be a Metroid?
But it has to, because it's a genre.
So here you have these two podcast hosts digging into the ground furiously like this is Captain Toad Treasure Tracker, trying to figure out this complex puzzle of semantics as far as does a Metroid game itself count as a Metroidvania. And the reason reason why this targeted symposium is fruitless is because Metroidvania is one of very few gaming genres where the name of the original game is itself the name of the genre in the term that gets coined. So this entire conversation would be totally moot if the genre were just universally by everyone described as search action. If it was a search action genre that we were all calling it, then there would be no question whatsoever that a Metroid game or a Castlevania game each count as being part of that genre, the search action genre, after which there were many more games following that inspirational line. But here they are spinning their wheels, walking in circles, trying to, for example, decide whether an early Metroid game would count as a Metroidvania since it doesn't have the Vania. And it's, you guys got to keep your eye on the ball. You should just use search action to be synonymous with Metroidvania, which will significantly cut down on the semantics nontent on display here. So now you're going to hear Ryan and company attempt to articulate how this might apply in a similar scenario to movie genres such as action movie. And I want you to count on your fingers in your mind how many times is the phrase
Action movie
spoken aloud. Is it more than 10?
How can Metroid be a Metroid?
But it has to, because it's a genre. Like, for instance, it's what was the first action movie?
I don't know.
Right?
Yeah.
That's an action movie. It is. Right?
Yeah.
Right? Is Terminator an action movie?
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Sure.
If there was an action movie called Action Movie, would it be an action movie?
Well, who
Yes.
knows? You'd have to watch the movie and say you could call comedy action movie, and maybe it has no action in it though.
Right. But let's say there was an action movie that we would agree has action movie criteria that is called action movie. It is an action movie.
But let's say that movie was made this year, and then it doesn't really make sense. I think your other thing you said was it has to be like the first.
I think you have more of a
action
problem
movie.
with the word because it contains the titles of the games. If it was called an exploration platformer, you would feel better about it.
Because didn't Metroid start all those things? Didn't Castlevania start all those things? Or most of those things?
See, Ryan has figured this out. None of these existential questions would apply to something like the open world genre, and a quick Wikipedia search can catch you up on what are the earliest canonical examples of open world games. Okay, so as we now wind down part 1 of this video, we're going to actually look at the theme song montage that played at the beginning of every episode, a custom original song, quote-unquote, that was made to open up every episode of Talk About Games with Ryan and Mike. And what I want you to listen for here is the very milquetoast, kind of wholesome vibe of this that really just directly conflicts with Mike's, tasteless sense of humor, his nihilistic edginess. That aspect is clashing with them just, sitting at the desk, having full-bodied, hearty laughter, like this is a sitcom intro or something. So I'm going to play this for you now with the video component, with this overt enthusiasm that you don't really find in the real world outside of plain, regular stock footage that's kind of hammy.
Time for talk about games, played by Ryan and Mike. A modern, a retro video game show. Yes, we talk about games and sometimes other stuff, like Star Trek. It's a blast, our gaming podcast.
Okay, but that's not all. There's a case to be made that this song isn't exactly the most original composition that was ever written. Because if you listen to enough episodes of this and hear that theme song at the beginning, that wholesome sitcom vibe paired up with this particular composition, it starts to very much feel like the Full House theme song. Remember Bob Saget's program with the young Olsen twins? So here's the back-to-back comparison of Full House to the Talk About Games theme. Everywhere you look, everywhere you see.
Time for talk about games, played by Ryan and Mike.
Followed by It's a Heart, It's a Heart.
A modern, a retro video game.
And if you think I'm wearing a tin hat about this, may I point out the fact that both of these songs are composed in the key of E major. So it's just a little bit derivative, people. Now, as we conclude part 1 of this video, I want to make it clear that me making this video today is not a total takedown dunk fest saying that the podcast is totally bad or anything like that. Even if someone were to say that this podcast is not for everyone, that's fair enough, but the podcast most definitely does have its fans. And they're not wrong to like it. I'll be the first to say that he's not a perfect, well-rounded individual or anything, but Mike Matei largely seems like a cool guy, and he's just got a chill vibe. He's partly carrying the legacy of Cinemassacre into the future. And so having him talking with Ryan, another longtime Cinemassacrite, there's absolutely a value in that. If they had a more targeted format, then maybe I could have seen myself listening to this on a regular basis. But when they announced suddenly that the podcast was abruptly done and canceled, there were plenty of people emerging from the woodwork to say, it's a shame to see this podcast end because people really liked it. They looked forward to it every Friday, and I absolutely see the appeal. And look, using the same desk that the James Rolfe Cinemassacre podcast used wasn't exactly helping things. The stain of the slobs is all over that desk and broadcasting room. But what can you do? So as we now enter part 2 of this video, we're going to look how it all wrapped up, how it all imploded into an ephemeral mist with the abrupt cancellation announcement. So we revisit now the time capsule of the final dispatch of the Talk About Games podcast. The video opened with the normal intro theme song as cheery and friendly as ever, and then it just swerves into the cancellation.
Hello and welcome to the final episode of Talk About Games. I'm Ryan.
And I'm Mike, and today we're talking about the end of this show.
Yeah.
So good news.
That's good news.
So Ryan and I both really like doing this show. I love doing this show, but the deal is we wanted more views and it's not getting it, so we're done.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
So I reacted negatively to this because I've seen the other content creators do this where they're trying to get a YouTube show up and running, or maybe they've been doing it a long time and it's successful, but they've lost their passion. It's time to end the show and say goodbye. And the final sign-off just has this air of, that phrase that Mike used. Let's play it again. He's just like, I'm done.
The deal is we wanted more views and it's not getting it, so we're done.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
It's almost like disdainful and kind of a little bit spiteful. It's like, all right, this didn't work out. Screw you guys. I'm done. I'm out of here. And I think that's just a little bit tone deaf because the only people listening to him say this now are loyal viewers of the show. The people who actually did step up to support the show by watching it and clicking the like button, talking about it at singles mixers. But to just say we're done. It's just this sort of backhanded all right, you guys out in the audience didn't do your part. We didn't get enough views, so screw you guys. We're going home. And I remember when Insane in the Rain, that guy who did video game covers, did his final sign-off, and it was just after so many years of passionate musicianship and a loyal following of people. It's fine if suddenly you turn around and have a sour taste in your mouth and you're just done with the entire thing, but there have been people who have been supporting you, fully enjoying the format that you've been presenting throughout the years. It's just such a way to end on a bad note that's very thankless. Okay, so now let's hear Ryan's side of this, why the podcast is coming to a close based on what's been going on for him.
So I'm not gonna bullshit you guys. This is a fun show and I like doing it. However, I am producing 4 video games right now. I'm building a production facility and I'm running 3 companies. And some of these games I was playing 8, 10, 12 hours.
There's a few you played 40 plus.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is an excruciating humble brag on Ryan's part, a flex. It's a delusion of grandeur to cite the quantity of video games that you're developing and also companies that you're running, especially because no one forced all those things on Ryan's plate. All that happened is that Ryan overcommitted, and that's where we're tying this back to the things that were stated when the podcast got started. And then it's also bizarre to hear Ryan talk about, the commitment of it, playing these games for 10 hours, 40 hours, when you circle back to the first episode, the whole streamlined appeal to the format is that it was just a natural extension of what they were going to be doing anyway. They both like games. Mike streams a whole lot. So this was supposed to be basically a natural passion project, solidifying largely what they were going to be doing anyway. And in that first episode, Mike specifically said what a small time commitment it was. But now things have suddenly changed somehow. So now Mike Matei is going to play the role of a salesman at the edge of the apocalypse by trying to sell you on the idea that actually this podcast gave you a whole lot and you should be happy with the volume of content we provided you.
We wanted to have the show do a little better than it was doing. Like maybe if the show had been getting 50,000, 60,000 views per episode, we probably would still be doing it. But the show's getting like 10, 15,000, maybe 20,000 views an episode. It's not quite where we want it to be. On top of that, Ryan, even if it was getting more views, Ryan doesn't really have the time to do it anyway. So it's kind of just like, it sucks because we like to do it, but at the end of the day, we kind of got to be adults about it and be like, this is not really, it doesn't make sense. Also, we have to pay editors to do it and whatnot. And it's just not really, it's costing more money than it's making for sure. And so we tried to make it work, but it's not working.
Yeah. So it's a natural stopping point, though. There's 52 episodes and nearly 52 episodes on Patreon. So we did over 100 pieces of content in Talk About Games. And, you know, the 52 mainline episodes, that's a good run for any show. I mean, even though it was only over the course of a single year, it's like a solid body of...
Do you think there's more episodes of Talk About Games than there is of like Stranger Things?
There probably definitely.
You know?
Probably, definitely. Guys, Stranger Things, every single episode takes thousands of hours to create. Talk About Games, as they told us in the very first episode, was just a passive, natural attachment of the gaming they were going to do anyway. And look, 52 true episodes plus another 50-some Patreon-exclusive episodes. That's not, like, really bad or anything. And finally, we have arrived at the final James Rolfe-esque production inefficiency, which are the episode's unique title cards. The artwork and the thumbnail, you know? Take it away.
You know, we really appreciate that. I loved Xander's title cards. The one for this episode is probably going to be one of my favorite. He hasn't made it yet.
His title cards were amazing. And I remember when we came up with the idea for the show, one of the main ideas for the show was we wanted to do a mashup of both of our games. I would choose a game, Ryan would choose a game, and we specifically wanted like art thumbnails, and I'm glad that we were able to have such quality, awesome thumbnails. You know, I feel like these thumbnails would have been great for a channel that had, you know, 20 million subscribers.
Right.
You know, we're such a small channel, so I think we were fortunate to have such nice art on a channel as small as Talk About Games.
So Mike is almost there, and he is on point in some ways to mention that, yeah, maybe thumbnails like this would be more appropriate for a channel with 20 million subscribers, but you only get 15K views per episode, so you are investing way too much of your production budget into these thumbnails. That artist is not making these thumbnails for free, and since they have cited finances as one of the reasons for ending this podcast, because they have to pay editors, they have to pay the guy to make the custom thumbnails, I would just caution aspiring content creators to work within their means. Don't spend this time and effort to have these fancy vanity thumbnails. It's cool to have unique art, but you have to crawl before you can walk. Like, have you ever supported a relatively small YouTuber on Patreon with a modest pledge, a struggling creator who claims that money is tight, but then they turn around and make new videos? Why are you commissioning these deluxe artistic thumbnails made by actual artists with impressive custom art? If your videos are only getting 200 views, why do I want my Patreon pledge to cover some of the costs of these unnecessary vanity art thumbnails? Well, with all that being said, we have now arrived at part 3 of this video, where I will now be delivering Mike Matei his sentencing, which will specify what Mike needs to do in order to atone for this situation. So here we are, Mike Matei. I hereby sentence you to that the next time that you start up a project and then abandon it all of a sudden, despite having many loyal fans that were loving it every step of the way, when you do that inevitable blindsided sign-off cancellation, don't scorn your audience as if they failed to live up to their part of the deal. Because you look at the comments, they were there enjoying it for the entire run, and they're genuinely sad, even baffled that it's ending, especially considering considering the fact that when you compare Talk About Games to a lot of the other run-of-the-mill quote-unquote shows that Screenwave has churned out, Talk About Games is generally one of the better performing podcast content mills that they've ever put together. So I just want to give one final shout out to Mike Matei and Ryan. I know I grilled you guys today, but it was all in good fun in the spirit of AVGN, playing bad games and doing 360 windmill dunks on them. But I've been watching Cinemassacre stuff for a great many years, so they have a special place in my heart, to the extent that I could even bring myself to listen to some of their meandering podcasts. With its blindfolded tangents, extensive audio instruction manual surveillance, and a derivative theme song that reflects a genuine milquetoast enthusiasm that really only exists in stock footage, not in the actual real world. This has been Alex Yard here at 91.6 WAYZ, the Alex Yard Zone, Internet Terrestrial Radio. So to everyone watching this video, your homework assignment is to go watch one of my favorite entries in the field of Cinemassacre social sciences, which is of course the James Rolfe rap. It's a good one, it's a diamond in the rough, so shout out to Plinio who did that rap, and of course the Red Cow Arcade guys, both of whom have made greater contributions to the field than Folding Ideas, who did that long, pretentious Tim Rogers style deep dive. Good night, everybody!